Welcome back. We're in conversation today with Suhel Seth. Suhel, you've been called witty by some, funny, and also a loudmouth. What compels you to be so brutally honest and forthright about your opinions?
I don't know. I mean, people ask for them, and I think rather than lie and have sleepless nights, I'd just rather be upfront. And yeah, see, I've come to a stage in life where I really don't care what people say. I know what I'm doing. I know I'm doing it diligently. I'm doing it with credibility. I'm doing it without an agenda. No one can buy me. No one can force me to say, what they would like me to say. And to hell with the rest. Winston Churchill famously said, the only person you've got to be popular with is your wife. And I don't have one. Therefore, I don't even have that noose around my neck.
So I speak my mind attitude, has that cost you friendships and relationships?
No, not at all. And if it has, which I don't know of, I couldn't care. Because if relationships can be ruptured or fractured on the basis of what you say and what you know is honest and credible, then that relationship wasn't meant to be. A friend must understand that I will take a stand. And my real friends do. For the rest, I don't care.
But
I'm not
it
here
is a
to...
rare commodity. Not many people are as brutally honest as you would be. In India, there are very few Suhel Seths around.
Thank God, otherwise, we wouldn't be relevant. No, to be fair, I think what happens is there must be very many brutally honest people. But we often get cowed down. Again, because we are thinking of the future rather than living in the present. We worry, what if I take a stand against this guy today and tomorrow he becomes important? Will I get messed up? Will I get strung? But you can't think like that. Man cannot live in a tunnel which is engulfed by fear. You've got to live in the free spirit of mankind, which is say things that you believe in. And if you don't believe in them, then don't say it. So a lot of the time, what happens is we are hypocritical. We say things that we don't ever believe. And it either shows up in the way we say it, or it shows up in our deeds later. Either of which is disgusting. So why would I say something that I don't believe in? So I will tell you straight. If you ask me a straight question, I will never duck the question. Because to my mind, you've asked me a question, you have the right, and I must have the courtesy to respond to you. I cannot create a situation where I obfuscate. And the tragedy is, we are too worried about society. We're too worried about what our peers will say. We're too worried about, will I get into trouble? Will I lose the next invitation to that party? And that is what drives us to this silence, which is so, it's full of subterfuge.
You write a column for The Telegraph called The Survival Strategies.
Yeah.
You've been criticized sometimes for belittling or sometimes even making a mockery out of people's problems. Do you feel it's a fair criticism?
Absolutely, but that's the brief. People should realize that I work to a brief. I was told by Avik Sarkar, who owns the Anand Bazaar group, that he wanted me to be an agony uncle. I told him I was not going to be a polite agony uncle because I've never been polite in my life. So he says, what will you be? I said the opposite of polite, which is rude, which is exactly what I am. People love it. It's the longest running column in all of Indian journalism.
It is very funny.
It is funny. People love it. People in Calcutta, whenever I visit Calcutta or the Northeast, come up to me and say, we begin our Sundays with that column. So why should I care if people criticize me? People criticize Galileo, for God's sake. They criticize Plato. They criticize Mandela. They criticized Gandhi.
So it never gets to you?
Never. You have to be thick-skinned. If you're in public life, you've got to be thick-skinned. But that doesn't mean you've got to be unresponsive. It doesn't mean you've got to be insensitive. But you've got to be thick-skinned. You can't let every bit of criticism, pain you to no end or change the way you are. Often what happens is we get so alarmed by criticism that we then keep changing. Man is not a chameleon. Chameleons are chameleons.
And despite what you say, people still keep writing to you?
Yeah, I told you, humanity is a glutton for punishment. They love it. I think, it's come to a stage, and a lot of, perniciously minded people would tell me, Suhel, are you sure you don't write the questions and the answers?
Yeah.
I said, I haven't gotten to that level of insanity. Because some of these questions are purely insane. But then people love it. So as long as the column receives so many questions, almost 800 to 1,000 questions a week, of which I answer only 3, I'm happy, they're happy.
You're friends with the rich and famous. You're known to be friends with the Bachchans and with the Khans. So how do you maintain to keep a friendship with two rival camps?
I think that's an excellent question. They're rival camps in the eyes of the media. For me, my relationships are exclusive. They're not inclusive. I'm not a guy who works in cliques. I'm not in anyone's camp. I am my own camp.
You are your own brand.
It's not even about brand. I'm my own camp. Why on earth would I be tortured? Why would I stress myself about, does that guy like this guy, so therefore should I be... If someone invites me, and if someone who I invite comes over to my house, we're friends. I don't care what his relationship with person X or person Y is. And I'll tell you, Sadia, they respect me more for that. And the other rule that I follow is, I will never discuss one camp, to use inverted commas, with the other.
But isn't
I will
there
never
pressure
carry
from one
tales.
camp that
None.
you're our friend?
No. If you allow your friendship to morph into some form of sane slavery, then you run that risk. But if your friendship is an independent friendship, based on respect, on trust, on engagement, then you don't need to worry. Often we second guess people who are bigger or more famous or more important than us. We want to own them. Friendships are not territorial. Friendships are borderless. Relationships often become territorial, which is why relationships suffer. Why does a man and woman suffer in a relationship when he or she does? It's because we ring fence that relationship and don't allow the air of freedom to invade. We use words like possessiveness and obsession, but those are just words. In our minds, we don't want to lose that person. So in order not to lose the person, we imprison that person.
I think what friends tend to use the word is loyalty. They feel you're being disloyal when you're
There's
friends.
no such thing. Loyalty is the most abused generalization in mankind. There is no such thing as loyalty. Honesty is a virtue. Loyalty is an extended apparition, or perhaps an accessory, either of vanity or of, trying to be too cool for everyone's comfort. But it never works in the long term. So my advice to people would be honest, be credible, be a warm, decent human being. Say it as it is. Don't worry about the consequences. Because those consequences would occur even if you weren't. So, they're not sub judice, to use that word loosely.
Suhel, one always sees a beautiful woman in your arms, and you've been photographed with striking women. How come you're still single? Are you still single?
Yeah, I'm still single in the sense I don't have a committed relationship with anyone.
So you have a relationship but not a committed one?
No, I don't have a committed relationship. The words are inseparable.
Okay.
I'm a great believer that since I'm not gay, I have the right to be with a woman.
Sorry, you felt the need to state that.
Yeah, because, in India, if you're not married, you're either gay or certified impotent, or you must have bad breath or body odor. So I must say this on international television, I suffer from none of those, problems. The reality is that I'm single. If I can keep a woman enthralled or entertained, whose business is it anyway? I'm not forcing anyone at gunpoint. I'm not kidnapping them like the dacoits of Chambal. I'm not, giving them some kind of inducement to say, you'll get a better job, or you get this, or you get that. I mean, people ask me, why do you have pretty women around you? I said, would you much rather I had ugly women? I mean, let's face it, we're all human beings, and let's not be hypocritical about these things. The reality is, which man wouldn't want a beautiful woman by his side? It doesn't mean that you're being a marauder. It doesn't mean that you're a serial womanizer. But let's stop being hypocrites. And none of my friends or my lady friends have ever had a complaint about going out with me. So why on earth should I worry about the rest of the world?
Did they have a complaint when you stopped going out with them?
That I don't know, because then I'm not in touch for me to know whether they've complained or not. And I don't have the time, nor do I stay in one place long enough to even understand that they've been gossiping. So I'm merrily ignorant of their complaints if and when they do make those complaints.
Okay. Well, in 1989, you married your co-actor, Sandhya Narayan, who played your daughter in the play Bhutto.
Correct.
Was it love at first sight?
No, it wasn't love at first. Again, these are things that Mills and Boone and, people with very limited intelligence would sell it. Oh, was it love at first? There's no such thing as love at first sight.
But ask any boy who's between 17 and 20 and they have love at first sight every other day.
Yeah, so therefore it's not love at first sight. I mean, you could be seeing different flowers as you walk in a park. That doesn't mean love at first sight with every flower. Sandhya played my daughter, played Bhutto. It wasn't child marriage, I can assure you. The age difference between us was, I think, 3 or 4 years. And I played Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. Outstanding girl. Brilliant. We stayed married for 4 years. And then 1993, we parted. And we parted very amicably. She has moved on and married again. And I have moved everywhere and remained unmarried.
But it must have been a very difficult time for you when your marriage ended.
Not at all. See, I'm not going to give you the usual response. Oh my God, yeah, my heart, I was in pain. I couldn't go out. I was distraught. I stopped eating. I put on 20 kilos. Nothing happened. In my life, and it may sound insensitive, but it's logical.
So you can't be happy-go-lucky about everything in life.
I am happy-go-lucky about everything. When the marriage ended, I knew it was ending. It wasn't as if, we suddenly got into a car and found that the car isn't starting. Life is not a battery that suddenly, dies on you. We knew it was not going in the manner we wanted it to go. And the best thing was to end it. We are human beings. We don't have to endure pain if we can avoid it. If you take medicines for a headache, why wouldn't you split in order to be happy? So when we split, I was happy. She was happy. We had no bile or no, issues related to animosity. We just move on.
Do you think you'll marry again?
I don't know. You tell me. I've often told you that I want to meet a nice Pakistani girl. I've even gone on record on Indian television, gone to trouble saying, take Kashmir, give us their women. No one listens to me. So what do I do?
But seriously, is marriage on the cards?
I don't know. I don't know if marriage is on the cards.
Do you think that you've been single for so long that perhaps now it's a habit and you'll find it very difficult to share your life with someone and, let them come into your little inner space?
No, see, again, I'm not Jiddu Krishnamurti or, some heavy-duty philosopher who will say, oh, there's an inner space. I don't know. I'm only worried about, will I have enough closet space to give to the woman if and when I marry? So I have a very practical way of defining.
So if you do manage to build in, built-in wardrobe.
No, I have a built-in wardrobe. I'm only worried about how many hangers I can spare. No, I'm just joking. I think it's too difficult for anyone to say, oh, I'm going to marry. Marriage is not like a business plan. And wherever it is a business plan, it never works to great advantage. I don't know if I'll marry. But if and when I do, I will certainly send you and the crew cards for the marriage.
But, as age is moving on, I'm not saying that you're very old. I'm just saying as age is moving on and the hair is getting more salty than peppery, one does feel lonely.
Again, another myth. Winston Churchill famously said, a man is only as young as the woman he feels. As of this morning, I'm 23. So what more can I say? Without divulging any more details of statecraft, I've told you everything.
Yes, you have. So moving on, before you decide to divulge more information here, what are your thoughts on freedom of expression?
I think it's very relevant. I think we behaved miserably in India at the Jaipur Literature Festival by, the acts and the antecedents that happened. I'm also a great believer that Salman Rushdie miserably spoke of Islam. I'm a proud Hindu, but I still believe he had no business to write and express what he did about Islam in the satanic verses. For me, freedom of expression is relevant if it is related either to an issue or a cause. It can't be personal. And there are three things which are personal to mankind: religion, his parenthood, and his belief system. The belief system may have things to do with ideology, with philosophy. So I can't say a communist is bad, but I can question the virtues of communism in a highly capitalistic world. I can't say Judaism or Christianity is better or worse than Hinduism. So when people make these kind of statements, or when these innuendos are passed, that's when we need to worry. I will never make a statement on anyone's religion, on anyone's sexuality, or on their personal lives. That's their business. If it affects public good, I will. I was the first person on Indian television to talk about the fact that many of our cabinet ministers had mistresses, which is why the country was running well, because they had no time to actually run the country. So the country was on brilliant autopilot. I also said famously that we had a prime minister who would only sleep. That's why the country ran well, because there was no one to, create any trouble. So personal lives apart, I think you must be able to relish, respect, and regard the freedom of expression. It's a fundamental freedom to humanity. And I don't think it should be taken away by anyone. I think what's happening in Pakistan, Quwad Musharraf, what's happening across the world, if you look at what's happening in Sudan, if you look at what's happening in Somalia, I think it is a travesty of justice. But these are the real issues that need to be brought to the fore, which we don't.
Speaking of freedom of expression, in 2011, one of your Twitter feeds caused quite a large controversy, and ITC decided to sue you for 200 crore.
Actually, 700.
Really?
Yeah, they sued me for 100 crores, another 500 crores.
Oh, the 500 must have come later then, because
Yeah.
initially it was 200 crore,
Correct.
right? Whatever happened to freedom of speech?
Nothing. You ask them. I continue to fight. They sued me. I didn't sue them. So they objected to my freedom of speech.
Yes, they did.
And my freedom of speech was linked to one individual
I know.
who I have written about and spoken about, not only in the tweets, in articles. So there's consistency. And that person is in public life. He's the chairman of a listed company. So he's sued me in court. We will take it up in court. So a lot of people said, what will happen? I said, I don't know. I'm not going to sacrifice my freedom of speech. I'm not going to be gagged. If the judges so decide that there was an error on my part and they inflict punitive damages, so be it. I don't have 700 crores.
Yeah, exactly. The amount they're suing you for, don't you think it's a bit bizarre?
Yeah, but who ever told you that everyone in the world was as sane as you and I?
You have many of those, don't you? You're friends with most of Bollywood. Who do you admire the most?
I would unequivocally say I admire Amitabh Bachchan a lot. I admire Dilip Saab. I admire Shah Rukh. I won't say admire Shah Rukh.
Suhel, one answer.
Bachchan, by far.
Why is that?
We grew up on him. We grew up on his cinema.
So it's like hero worship?
No, admire. Hero worship, I would perhaps not hero worship anyone but my parents. No one has had that much of an influence on my life for me to hero worship them. But Bachchan, I would admire for his sagacity, for his wisdom, for the enormous wealth of talent he brought to cinema. I mean, even today when we play Holi, which is the festival of colors, we start with Rang Barse. He's become an intricate part of your life, and therefore you admire the guy. And you admire his willingness to continue despite any adversity. Those are people worthy of admiration.
Bollywood has a lot of underworld connections. Some also say that the Bollywood control a lot of what is produced in movies. Is that correct?
I don't know. I have never had a threat by an underworld don yet. So until that happens, I can't comment. But people have told me that, yes, they have underworld connections, Dawood Abraham, But how many things can we keep blaming Dawood Abraham for? I mean, I don't think even Dawood Abraham is so talented to run such a gamut of unachievable issues. But yes, there was a time when there were connections. There was a lot said about it. I don't know. It's never been proven. People say, we get threat calls and, all that.
They finance a lot of movies, don't they?
I don't know. The good thing is, I never pass a value judgment on something that I don't know. What I do know is that there has been a lot of media, a lot of speculation, a lot of conjecturing on the fact that there is an inherent connection between the underworld and Bollywood. If there is, to my mind, it needs to be investigated. We need to arrest both parties. And if there isn't, then we need to actually have an investigation, drop this whole, perceptual game playing that's been happening for, almost 3 decades.
So does the casting couch exist? So
I don't know. I wish it did. But, I've only sat on couches like this, where I'm cast aside, but never,
But
part of the
seriously,
cast.
Suhel,
Of course
you
it exists.
do know it exists.
Of course. But listen, it exists in Hollywood. It existed during Clinton's White House years. I mean, it wasn't a casting couch, it was a casting chair. But it happens. I mean, that's how the world is. So let's not be squeamish about it. Oh my God, is there a casting couch in Bollywood? For God's sake, Bill Clinton. And he was the president of the free world. I mean, he cast himself in the chair. So why are we worried about, little film directors and film actors? I mean, to each his own. If it exists, which I'm sure it does, it's bad. But I don't know any other way. I mean, not that I've used it, but I'm just saying that I don't know what will happen in its absence. But the reality is that I'm sure it exists. Look, in the world, it always happens that human relationships always acquire a dominant versus a less dominant position. You think this doesn't happen in the corporate world? Of course it does. You think sexual harassment has been done away with like malaria and polio? Of course it hasn't.
But you're so vocal. How come you wouldn't want to speak about this
I
topic?
did. When Shiny Ahuja, one of these guys, got arrested for sexual harassing his maid, I was the first one to say, throw him behind bars and throw away the keys. I remember there was a time when Shakti Kapoor or one of these guys invited a girl over and there was some incident. I went on television and slammed them, saying that, you cannot have a situation where you actually seduce people on the strength of who you are rather than of what talents you bring to the party.
You recently wrote your book, How to Get to the Top.
Yeah.
What made you want to write this book?
Actually, I wrote it at the behest of a very, very fine publisher called Chiki Sarkar. And she said, we want an honest book which actually talks about how to be socially successful. So that's what I did. And I'm delighted to know that it sold over 145,000 copies.
You mentioned in your book that it's very important to read. In fact, you've stressed upon
And I stressed in my interview with you.
Exactly. About reading and about being interesting. That be interesting. But how can you become interesting? Either you're interesting or you're not.
Not at all.
You can't acquire that trait.
No, but if you've interviewed 20 people, you've added to your interest levels. I mean, you now know about Pakistan politics. You now know about bachelors who are dubbed serial womanizers. I mean, look at your breadth of interest. So, it's not about...
But Suhel, I was interesting to begin with.
So there you are. Well, you're an exception. But the reality is you've got to be interested in things.
Yeah.
And only then do you become interesting. We weren't all born interesting. We were born the same. Gender differences apart, we were all born the same. Then we acquired attributes which were either culturally indexed or academically indexed, and we became who we are. Then we became interesting to a certain set of people. You and I cannot be interesting to every person on this planet. If we were, we'd have statues of ourselves. But the reality is, you must strive not to become interesting because the world wants you to be interesting. You must strive to be interesting because that is the only way people will be interested in you. So you're not desirous, but at the same time, you're cognizant. And what often happens is we're so tunnel visioned in our approach to life that we don't take these things into account.
You speak about friendships with the rich and famous.
No, friendships. The rich and famous are some media reviews that talked about. I've never used the word rich or famous.
But you are famous. You are friends with the rich and famous.
Also.
But can they really be your true friends?
Of course they can.
Can they be your 2 a.m. friends?
Yes.
Really?
The biggest myth is that because you're wealthy, you lose a bit of your soul. Incorrect. Wealth doesn't necessarily mean the loss of soul. Wealth doesn't necessarily mean the loss of respect for other people. There are wealthy people and there are wealthy people. There are some scoundrels who will use you for what you are.
But do you lose a bit of your soul when you're extremely famous?
Not at all. It depends. You see, ultimately, there is only one measure of unequaled success: the ability to have a good night's sleep. You know, people ask me, what do you want to achieve in life? I said, I've already achieved it. I sleep well at night. There's that Hindi saying, "Ghode bech ke sona." If you're guilty about your friendships or your relationships, or if you're guilty of manipulation or guile, you'll never be able to sleep well at night. So there are people who are wealthy who are extremely decent. See, there's a difference between money and wealth. Wealth whispers, money screams. So you have to choose the right kind of person. And if that person is not the right kind of person, you won't even have to work at it. The relationship will automatically never, fructify.
Your book has done very well. However, you have your fair share of critics. One of them wrote, "This book is a work of career positioning, a hardbound advertisement for its author." Do you feel it's a fair critic?
To each his own. You know, as I said earlier, criticism is always welcome. I know what I've done. My publisher knows what I've done. The consumer, in this case, the readers know what they've done. I couldn't be bothered about a critic. You know, I've done 135 plays. If I were to get emotional about every play review, I wouldn't be here. I'd be a wreck. I have to realize, have I done an honest job? Have I done it without an agenda? And if I have, to hell with the critics.
So you're planning on writing another book, aren't you?
Yes.
Tell us a little about that.
Well, there are 2 books that I'm planning. One is a book on the 10 people who destroyed India, but I might have to increase the list because with every
you
passing day...
might have to get a new passport.
No, that I will need. So I'm applying to the Fiji Islands or the Maldives, but I'm worried about Maldives going under.
Okay.
So I have to keep that option open. So I'm doing a book, The 10 People Who Destroyed India, and my other is a work of fiction, which I can't talk about. But it's not pornographic or about women, so you can rest in peace.
What does the future hold for Suhel?
I don't know. I don't care.
Really?
I actually don't care. You know, this whole thing, so where will you go from here?
Free bird, free-spirited.
Yeah, with pretty
live
women.
Life to the fullest.
Absolutely, Epicurean.
With 23-year-old pretty women.
Or whatever. I hope it becomes 21. If she's old enough to vote, she's old enough to be on my arm.
Well, you know it can't go below 18 because then we'll have a problem.
That's why I said if she's old enough to vote,
Yeah.
she can be old enough to be on my arm.
Okay. What are the key ingredients to success?
I would say there are no ingredients. Success is not a dish. You know, this whole thing. So, what are the 3 things that made you successful? And the guy says, I was this, I was this, I was this. No one cares. I don't know. And again, everyone defines success by their own barometers of competence and comfort. It's never about this or that.
If there was any brand in the world you could promote or create an advert for, which brand would that be? You can't say, I don't care. That answer is not allowed.
I would do an advertisement for truth. I'm saying this with seriousness. I would make truth sexy. I'd make truth relevant. And I'd make truth an important, to quote your phrase, an ingredient of everlasting success.
How do you make truth sexy?
Well, that's why you'll have to give me the campaign to work on, as to why honesty always pays. And I'll tell you one thing, I'm not saying this because, you know, it's a nice thing to say on television. I think for far too long, we have moved away from truth. And truth in its absolute sense, not truth in its subjective sense. And by truth, I don't mean a truth which is undigestible. A lot of people ask me about George W. Bush and said, you know, wasn't he adored? Wasn't he? I said, he was not manipulative. He may have been stupid. So he didn't do things with guile. He may be perhaps stupid enough not to know that he was doing the right thing. But he did the things with earnestness. He did them with a measure of truth. Today what is happening is, in the times of talk shows and fast-paced television and, you know, glittering, glamorous social parties, we've begun to say the same thing, which is the right thing. We've come to do the same thing, which is again the right thing. We as a civilization are becoming risk averse. And in that, the first thing that gets sacrificed is honesty. And I don't have to be honest to you. That's irrelevant. You have to begin by being honest to yourself. Can you therefore sleep a good night's sleep?
Any regrets?
None.
Seriously?
None. I wish I'd known you when you were 23.
Well, who knows? I may be 23. You've said that we all are brands. So Suhel Seth is a brand too. What is your USP?
Honesty.
Thank you so much, Suhel.
Thank you.
Thank you. You've been a fantastic and an extremely funny guest. But before you go, I have 10 very cute questions for you.
Sure. Are you copying Karan Johar? Where's the coffee? Where's the hamper?
The coffee came earlier. Coffee came earlier. So we have our 10 questions, like I mentioned. Karan Johar better watch out. English rose or chambeli?
Chameli.
Cougar or college girl?
College girl.
Botox or Bikram yoga?
Neither.
You have to choose one.
Oh, God. Bikram yoga.
Zeenat Aman or Praveen Bobby?
Both are equally miserable.
Zeenat Aman or Praveen Bobby?
Zeenat Aman.
BJP or Congress?
Neither.
You got to choose one.
Oh, why do you give us such terrible choices?
Well, it's the
I'd
least
much rather
favorite.
choose the Conservatives.
It's the least
but,
favorite.
The BJP. They're equally wicked.
Playboy or Times of India?
Well, again, Playboy.
Socialite or social activist?
Socialite.
Veena Malik or Malaika Arora?
Haven't heard of either.
Malaika Arora, you haven't heard of her?
Oh, of course, Malaika Arora.
Okay.
Patriotism.
Kanjar Khana or Zanan Khana?
Zanan Khana.
Pooja Bhatt or Pooja Bedi?
Pooja Bhatt.
And before we bid you farewell, Suhel, we always ask our guests to do something special for us. May that be read some poetry or act a certain role or something interesting or sing for us. What would you like to do?
Neither.
Suhel, come on, be a sport.
I've been on the couch for so long.
I know, but it's...
I mean, just because you all want your TRPs to increase by me stripping doesn't mean I have to do it.
You don't have to strip.
I'm just joking. What should I do?
You could act role for us. Something from Bhutto?
Bhutto, there's one particular I won't act.
Come on, you've got to put in the...
Yeah, but I'll do the facial movement.
This is Suhel Seth.
The facial movements will be enough because he's actually in a prison, so it's not as if he's prancing around.
Yeah.
And he looks at the audience and says, and now we start, life has never been easy when you're in power. I know power. I know power like no one does. I also know the abuse of power, which the present dictator has engaged in. But I also know that Pakistan alone is not a dictatorship. Indira Gandhi hated my democracy because I hated her dictatorship in the garb of a democracy. So power has strange bedfellows. Very strange. They know how to abuse it, but they also wait to win the next elections. So why would I be different? And why would I begrudge this prison cell? I will come back to where I belong. Power.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
And this is a play I did in 1986.
And you still remember all your lines.
Yeah.
I told you should have just stuck it out. You would have been the next Khan.
Anyway, I'll apply to be for you to do the ultimate season of Achievers.
Definitely.
And I'm just joking.
Thank you so much, Suhel. Thank you. It's been a fantastic.
Thank you.
It's been fantastic.
Thanks.
It's been a complete joy.
Thank
Thanks.
you.